And I guess can you I don't know if I'll be able to do much, but do you mind making me a co-host? I made you the host.
Yes. Make co-host. How's it going, Ruben?
What's up? What's going on, everyone?
Are you nervous?
Hey y'all.
A little bit.
You got it.
Should be fine.
You're gonna do great.
We should be good.
We'll give it just a minute, and then we've already got some people hopping in the waiting room. And then um, Dustin's on the road, so I think I'll probably handle of most of it.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, basically just going over the DD process and
Right.
streamlining things, your history,
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, for sure. Will we be able to go through the slide presentation that we put together?
Oh, I didn't know you had one. Are you able to share your screen? I made you a co-host.
Let me see. Hold on.
Yeah, if you want to do that, and then, we've got some questions prepared, and then we can open it up to people too. Um,
Oh, give me a second.
I
I just,
based those questions off the slides, so
oh, okay.
Oh, okay, sweet. So
most of the questions will probably just be like expanding on your personal experience at the
gotcha.
end.
Okay. Well, it's up to you. We put a slide, presentation that Nick and I could talk through. Uh,
Yeah.
but if you built the questions around that, that's also good. But it's up to you if you want us to use that or not.
Yeah, I'd do the slides. I mean, this is for
Okay.
you. So, you can just we'll introduce you and then turn it over to you. Are you able to share your screen? Does that work?
Yeah. Let me share my screen. I'm trying to find the slide really quick. Hold on
You've got 1 minute.
a second.
No
I have
pressure.
30 seconds, Ruben.
hold on. Where is it? Come on.
Jessica, do you have them by chance? I don't know if
Let's see. Okay.
did you find them, Ruben?
Got it. Sharing my screen right now.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and start letting people in. All right, welcome everybody to Inside Multifamily Due Diligence, what to look for before you buy. My name is Hayden Harrington. I'm one of the managing partners at Momentum Multifamily, joined by Dustin, my business partner. And then we've got our guest today with us, Ruben Ortiz of Sayan Construction. And so I'd love to kick it off by Ruben, if you could just maybe give yourself a little bit of background for everybody joining, who you are, where you're located at, what you guys
Yeah,
specialize in.
absolutely. Hayden, first of all, thank you for having myself and Nick Austin, who's our director of sales here at Sayan. Thank you for having us on. Welcome everyone. It's great to be part of this webinar. And yeah, Hayden, so like you said, I'm Ruben Ortiz, CEO and founder of Sayan Renovations and Construction. We are a multifamily general construction firm based out of Dallas, Texas. And all we do is multifamily renovations. We're headquartered here in Dallas. We do work all over Texas, and we do work nationwide. So we do have a nationwide reach. Really, it's where our clients need us to go is where we go. We started in 2014 and have been at it ever since. And yeah, so again, all we focus is on multifamily, large value add capex renovations, interior, exterior, asset repositioning, all that good stuff. I'll let Nick Austin introduce himself on our team.
Good afternoon. Yeah, my name is Nick Austin. I'm our director of sales here at Sayan Renovations and Construction. So we handle all the pre-construction side of these projects, right? So helping our clients align with what the scope needs to be, helping them understand what these projects entail, and really just setting the right expectations and getting these projects started off on a good foot. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you guys for joining. Appreciate you guys being here. I can attest that these guys do great work. Just on our experience working with them, they're definitely some of the best in the business. So, you guys have some slides prepared. You're going to kind of walk through this process. And then if anybody has questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the chat. We can get to them at the end and take it from there.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we prepared a few slides for everyone, and we'll go ahead and kick it off. Multifamily due diligence. Know exactly what you're buying before you close.
Cool. I can kick it off from here, right? So, just getting started, right? Whether you are an experienced operator, have owned and managed, thousands of units at this point, or you're just dipping your toe in, getting an understanding. The whole goal of today is that you walk out of here ready to attack your next acquisition. So what really makes and breaks these deals comes into understanding kind of that first initial process, right? You'll have 30, 60 days to take a look, open up into your due diligence space, understanding exactly what the asset looks like, the physical condition, and understanding what does this align with our business plan. And so one of the big things that we always want to help all of our clients understand is share with us exactly what you guys are planning to do. If we have a good understanding of that, we can truly walk into this and work on and look at the things that need to happen. So you'll have those first 30 to 60 days. Our goal is to walk 100% of your units. And that's very, very important. We're going to harp on that a few different times today, that getting a full understanding of every single unit is huge. You'll be so surprised at, call it 100 units, what those 2 units that you didn't get it to look at may be holding some large surprises, right? And these ultimately can be thousands of dollars worth of difference when it compounds over 100 to 200-300 units. So go ahead, Ruben.
Yes, and just to reiterate, everyone, it's super important that once you get your property under contract, once you're in that option period, you want to make sure that you get your eyes on 100% of the units and the full exterior. You want to get an idea of the full story as soon as you possibly can. So what does it cover? We cover, what does a due diligence normally cover? So we cover the unit interiors, walking every floor plan, whether that's with a general contractor, whether that's with us or your own general contracting partner. A lot of times the management property will conduct these walks with you or for you. Whoever it is and however you're getting it done, make sure that they put their eyes on 100% of those units. Flooring, appliances, plumbing, fixtures, whatever platform they're using, make sure it can provide a scoring report of the condition of units to make sure that you get a full understanding of what is going on in each unit. building exteriors, your roofing, your siding, decks, major components like your paint coatings, masonry, drainage, all that stuff. Your major systems, so you're looking at electrical panels, specifically on if you're buying older assets, you want to make sure that you're looking at the electrical panels. A lot of times your lender, they're looking out for specific panel brands that can be a liability for the property. So you want to make sure that you're looking at that. You're looking for plumbing type. What type of plumbing do you have? Cast iron, poly B. What's behind the walls? Do you have PEX? Do you have copper? Galvanized? All those are very important. And your HVAC systems. You want to take a look at your parking lots, your site, your amenities. Specifically around your clubhouse, areas for improvement, additional amenities, your signage, your lighting. On some of these older assets, bringing your properties up to ADA compliance has been a big stickler over the last couple of years. So you want to make sure that you're addressing, potential ADA deficiencies and making sure that those are bringing those up to code. Documenting everything during your due diligence phase, whether that's through photos, platforms we use a specific platform that provides all of that for us, that we provide and that we in turn provide to our clients. And lastly, life safety issues. Life safety issues are a big one. Liabilities. Avoid lawsuits. You don't want your residents getting hurt on your property for a small oversight. So you want to make sure that handrails are being checked, your egress, missing smoke detectors, missing fire extinguishers, your fire suppression systems on some of these newer assets that more of you are getting used to looking at. Every building, or a lot of buildings, depending on when they were built, change slightly, and code changes slightly as well. And identifying those differences can save you thousands and thousands of dollars, guys. Moving on.
Wait, so, right, what happens? Okay, you've got an asset, you want to go take a look, you've got an LOI accepted, it's due diligence time, right? Now, whether that's a group, you engage a group or a firm like ours or another one, this is what, after decades of experience, what we've found is worked the best, right? So starting off, scope and schedule. You want to understand one, and working with your contractor, having an idea of what that game plan is. How many units do we want to renovate? What do we want the exterior to look like? Are we rebranding this property? Are we, they've had issues in the past with life safety, like Ruben was mentioning. Is there, some things in that paperwork in your performer that you can take a look at and understand, okay, these are the existing issues. This is what we can see on paper. Now let's go take a look. So it's super, super important. And we'll talk about this multiple times today, to get as much of that information in your contractor's hand as possible. Even the small things of just having a rent roll, of understanding how long has a resident been in this unit? When did these things recently get renovated? And what's obviously selling today? So from there, it's time to schedule a walk, right? Actually get the full team out there. Now, with us, generally that first day is absolute chaos. You're going to have 4 different trades, 5 different trades out there, your plumbers, your electricians, your roofers. We're going to have everybody out there. It's going to be, like ants scattering across the property. You'll have your teams walking each and every individual unit and documenting all of those things like Ruben had mentioned before. Now, the third step, and this is the one that's going to be the most important for all owners and operators, is scoring and price, right? These are 2 different things. When it comes down to getting a full understanding of what is wrong or what is right on the property is huge, but understanding what these things are going to cost and how can we plan for those things. Having real world pricing on what it's going to take to renovate these units will be able to help you guys plan as you go into that negotiation stage or that funding stage. Do we need to raise more capital? Are we going to have to put more into capex? I don't know, countless times where we've found extra things and that hasn't killed the deal. That's just helped owners and operators understand, okay, oh, we've just got to allocate a little bit more towards this, right? So number 4 is report and review. This is super important to not only do internally, but with the team that you had on site. They can always bring insights that maybe in your initial walk that you went through that they maybe have found. So obviously understanding each one of those checklist items that you had found when they were scoring, but reviewing and understanding, hey, what's going to be first, right? What is going to be the main priority on this property that needs to get done first? And also understanding, hey, lenders may be requiring this is a 60-day item. This is, a 120-day item, and this is a year out item that needs to happen. And then from there, right, that's when it comes back to you is negotiating and planning, right? Our goal is to never, kill a deal. It's to help you have an understanding fully of what you're walking into with this asset. And whether that comes down to, and we'll share a few stories where things had, whether it was underreported, not understood, but helped owners or buyers go back to the table and say, hey, this wasn't planned or this wasn't seen. We're going to need a retrade item on these projects. And then rolling into planning. How are we going to phase these things out? What needs to be done in the first 90 days, first 6 months, and then the first year from there? And then we'll move on.
Good deal, Nick. Thank you, man. So where do we typically start? Exteriors. This is where you will find a lot of deferred maintenance items. Typically, it's the things that have been exposed. So one of the big ones that we look at all these things. The first one that we pay attention to is roofing. You want to know the age, any issues, and obviously going back to your again, having conversations with on-site maintenance, on-site staff. They typically know the ins and outs, the pain points of the properties. So they'll be able to give you some insights about some of these systems. So we're looking at the roof. We're putting plans of whether it makes sense to replace or repair. Put a good maintenance repair plan in place throughout your hold period if the roofing age and condition of the roof allows for that. The next one is your siding, any wood rot, siding and paint, any wood rot, specifically around your low points, ground area, water intrusion. A lot of times, felled caulk is a reason for leaks. And what a lot of us don't realize when it comes to paint, a lot of times you get on site and you say, hey, okay, this paint it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look okay, but it's not terrible. And we're going to try to extend the life of this paint, and we'll just do it in year 3. What a lot of us don't realize is paint is the first barrier of defense against the elements. It's an encapsulator. So what you don't realize this, but you want to make sure that your paint has plenty of life expectancy in it. And obviously, using the right product for it helps a lot, but you want to make sure that you're looking at this paint from that perspective. If I paint it now, will it mitigate my risk of having issues moving forward, whether that be with wood rot, water intrusion, failing caulk around the windows, around certain trims that will save me thousands of dollars in repairs in year 2, year 3, year 4. Deck, stairs, and rails, again, these are more for structural safety and life safety. You want to make sure, again, that you're addressing the items that will potentially get a resident hurt or can save you from a lawsuit. We're looking at masonry, all your brick, stone. Some of these newer properties have a lot of stucco, and each system requires different maintenance. You're looking at, and a big one is foundation. You want to make sure that your foundations are being checked, specifically, especially on older assets. Newer assets, you may not run into a lot of foundation issues, but it's still very wise to make sure that you have your foundation inspected during the due diligence process. Your parking and sidewalks are also a big thing that we look at, specifically for trip hazards, again, reducing liability, avoiding lawsuits. Your ADA requirements, having a clear path when you do have handicapped residents You want to make sure that they have clear paths and accessible paths to all of your amenities, their units specifically, and making sure that there's a good plan in place to address those areas. The foundation, drainage, and gutters go hand in hand. There's been many properties where we go in and the properties are having settling issues, foundation issues, and are missing gutters. What some clients don't realize is when it rains, that downpour of water coming straight down from the roof onto the ground starts creating erosion around your foundation and allowing water to start seeping underneath, causing for some settling issues and foundation movement. And making sure that you're keeping an eye out for, proper drainage, as well as, hey, does my property have gutters? Do I need to replace the gutters? Is a big ticket item, and you want to make sure that these are being caught during the due diligence process.
Perfect, Ruth. That's actually a perfect segue into kind of what we're going to talk about next. If we can go back one slide, I believe it is, maybe if I'm not wrong.
See here,
right where you were. That's perfect. One more is perfect. So that's a perfect segue when it comes to drainage and gutters. Great story that recently happened is we had a client that has had this property for 4 or 5 years now. They have gone through their make readies, trying to turn units as they went, but they constantly kept having an issue where they were seeing organic growth or mold in their units. And so even with heavy primers and replacing some of the drywall and things like that, they constantly found more and more moisture. They'd replace the floors, replace the subfloor, and constantly dumped more and more money into trying to remediate this problem. Come to find out, it was actually a gutter issue. It was an exterior issue that was starting to affect the interiors from there. And what it had done is it eroded enough to where the foundation had started to move and crack. And this moisture was actually coming in from underneath and causing this heavy humidity issue to where mold growth, organic growth was starting to happen inside the unit. So it's so important to understand, obviously, your exteriors, and then, going into our next slide, which is interiors, on how they affect, right? So the things that we want to look at first and foremost is your flooring and subfloor. I always tell everybody that's walking with us, let's start from the bottom and go up. So your flooring and subfloor, your feet will never lie, right? Feel, touch, and smell never lies when inspecting these units. So go around, walk in these units, walk in corners next to, I always have people, hey, stand next to the bathtub, walk up and down that bathtub little section. Are you feeling it get kind of soft? Around areas like, your sinks, do we have some moisture that's causing these subfloors to deteriorate? The next thing, right, is you're starting to move up. Open up every single one of your sink bases. Take a look underneath, right? It's like the same as looking underneath the hood of a car, is getting an understanding of what's going on in those plumbing areas. I can't tell you countless times where we've opened up the sink bases, and one of these areas you want to look for is that they're called angle stops, or your shutoff valves. There's 2 different types that you'll see. One is a full turn valve, the ones where you've got to turn it a few times to get it to turn off, or the quarter turn, which is a more updated version. The reason why those older ones can be such an issue is because they may have not have been turned off or turned on for a long time. And what happens is those deteriorate to a point where the time you do go to turn it off, when you have an emergency, they will actually just spin in place and they'll never shut, or vice versa when you try to open it up. So when you go through renovations, those are things not only in the inspection, but in the renovation phase that need to be replaced to make sure that you're not causing plumbing leaks. And we'll talk about some of these big 3 here in a second, but check your appliances. How do they mix, right? Do we have all black? Do we have half black, half white, half stainless steel? Get an idea of what that inventory looks like. One of my favorite things, and kudos to the Momentum Group, is they have in their immaculate storage for their maintenance team is almost a appliance boneyard, where they're able to remediate and fix a lot of these appliances and not have to spend a few $1,000s on a full new kit, because they had a good idea of what that inventory looked like. So on top of that, obviously moving up from there, your walls, doors, and trim. One of the biggest things that I'll tell you, if you don't bring it on your walks or on your due diligence phases, you'll be wishing you did, and your phone will die in about 10 minutes because you're constantly using the flashlight. Get a decent flashlight. Use that for two reasons. One, you'll be able to see, if you can shine it kind of at an angle on the walls, you'll be able to see patches that may have been done. And if you see this as a constant, issue throughout multiple units, you'll be able to see, okay, maybe they had to replace a lot of the plumbing in these units. It was a constant problem. And two is there's going to be plenty of units that may not have the power on, and you don't want to miss out on seeing things because you're using your phone light or not being able to get enough light. So real big tip there, always bring a flashlight. It seems like a simple thing to do, but from there, it's, again, feel, touch, use your five senses. Just signs of trouble. If you're seeing moisture stains, right, that's going to be a cause of concern. Try to understand where it's happening. Another thing that you need to always look for is in your, most of these buildings are built, floor plan is stacked on top of each other. They're very similar floor plans. So where the bathroom is, where the tub is, or the shower is, it's going to be the same above that. Underneath in that drain area, there's a P-trap. It's a little drain tube. Those over time, after about 10 to 15 years, a lot of times those will crack, and it's a very common place where you'll start to get water entry happen. So always look above where those showers are. It can be a constant buildup of either moisture, or the P-trap above it is actually cracked and needs to be replaced. But now, getting a good understanding of your exteriors, you have a good understanding of your interiors. There's really three big items that can essentially where you're going to be writing the biggest checks. So I'll have Ruben cover those. We call them our big ticket three.
The big three: electrical, plumbing, HVAC. And we touched on this in previous slides. Electrical, especially on the older assets. If you're looking at an older asset, pay attention. Typically, the panels are in a closet. If it's an older asset, now by code, they need to be on an exterior wall, meaning outside of the closet, which you'll typically find them. But we're looking at a specific Federal Pacific panels or Zinsco panels. Now, outside of the panels, we're also looking for aluminum wiring versus copper wiring. Both of these items have become a liability. They tend to overheat and in turn light up, start a fire. So, they become a liability. Insurance will more than likely ping you for it and will request a full replacement or some sort of a phasing plan to replace these. And not doing so can obviously keep you from either getting insured or getting a good price on insurance. But keep an eye out for Federal Pacific Zinsco panels of whether your units have aluminum versus copper wiring. All of these are not small ticket items. That's why they're part of the big three. Obviously, having to replace panels can become pretty expensive, depending on the county, city that you live, where the property is. They all call for different types of breaker panels, specific panels to be installed. The aluminum remediation, short of, which is not common for the city to come in and make you rewire the entire unit or property. The remediation looks like this. You can either do what we call purple wire nuts, or Kolar connectors, where they take the face of the switch, the light switch or electrical plug or GFCI off. They unwire it, rewire it with the purple nuts or Kolar connectors, and now you are remediated. You put everything back together. It gets inspected, of course. You put everything back together, and you are good to go. Moving on to plumbing. Again, keeping an eye out for polybutylene piping, which is a pipe that was used many years ago on some of these assets. And what ended up happening is that pipe gets very brittle over time and breaks very easily. They use this in walls, sometimes underground, and it just didn't work out the way the engineers or the manufacturers thought it was going to work, and it caused a lot of problems and can cause a lot of water leaks if it's in your property, as well as cast iron. We know what that does. It was built to last, but with movement and all the water exposure, it starts to get corroded. So if your property has that, you want to make sure that you're getting all of these lines and all of these plumbing systems checked, whether that's through camera, via camera scoping, obviously physically looking at it, and understanding what type of water heater systems you have. If it's a newer asset, you have a regular, tank water heater. You don't see very many tankless properties, but I've seen a couple where they've installed tankless water heaters on some of these newer properties. On the older assets, you'll run into water heaters, you'll run into into chillers or boiler systems. You want to make sure that those get inspected, all your pumps inspected. You want to make sure that they have been inspected by the city every year per code. Every one of those should be inspected yearly. HVAC can be a tricky one. You don't necessarily have to come in thinking, hey, these 50% of these units are older, I need to replace all of them. No, with a good maintenance plan in place, you can extend and you can refurbish these condensers and extend their life and make sure that you're using them throughout your hold period. Now, if it does come to, hey, I do need to replace some of these HVAC systems, you want to make sure that you're partnered up with a contractor who can ultimately replace them, leverage their buying power to get you the best price possible, and keep an eye out for refrigerants. Refrigerants have been changing, and by code, only certain refrigerants are allowed. So you want to make sure that those are identified and you understand what that cost could potentially look like once you close on the property. Those are the big three.
Well, I mean, this is what leads me kind of into that. Our next point is really taking a look where nobody stages, right? If you've been on a property walk before, you'll understand this. If you haven't, it's the same as when you're looking to buy a new house, right? Everything looks pretty. That even if in that initial walk phase or those first looks that you go out and see, you may even see some people, painting a few areas or touching up a few things on the property just to make sure that the property looks its best. Who isn't going to try to make their property look the very best? So there's a few things that, a few areas that want to look out for. Ruben touched on one, which is in the plumbing system, getting a good scope of the sewer mains that's actually supporting that property. Ruben, you can speak to this as well. How many times have we walked on a property and from the outside, it looks like the cleanouts, those sewer lines, have been replaced with new PVC, from the top down. But we stuck a scope in there and had a camera go take a look at it, and they had actually only replaced about 8 to 12 feet, and then the rest was all cast iron. And so these can be major issues when settling happens, where you can have a good idea: is there roots that are entering? Do we have bellies where water is backing up? Are residents using wipes or things that they shouldn't be flushing down the toilets, and these are causing constant backups? These can be problems that not only are a maintenance headache, but can be a full capital concern that can happen. One of the other things, whether it's our firm or another contractor, we need to be getting up in the attic and the crawl spaces. One, understanding it's super easy during the day, get up in the attic. If you see daylight, you got a problem, right? I don't think that's too hard of one to find. But in some properties that have crawl spaces, it's also getting under there, and that's a great way for us to view if there is any subfloor issues, wiring, moisture, or rot. Now, one that I'm sure anybody that's viewed a few properties, the telltale sign of whether a property is operating well or not is taking a look at the maintenance shop. If you can walk in a maintenance shop and it looks great, things are organized, parts are where they should be, and it looks like just a well-balanced maintenance shop, 9 times out of 10, that property is operating very well. And in those cases, right, roll out your plan, do what you got to do, and and this is a great asset for you. If not, you know exactly what you need to improve. So we've seen plenty of maintenance shops. If you walk into a maintenance shop and you see that there are, a pallet of water heaters, there's 20 water heaters in there, that's probably because there's a constant problem of these water heaters starting to age and may need to be a continued item that needs to happen throughout your capex plan. So always take a look at the maintenance shop. Obviously, the way we try to look at it is we want to see the worst units first. If there's a few down units, or show me your worst 20 units, we want to look at those first and work backwards from there. And then this conversation is probably worth its weight in gold. If you could pay for it, I would do it. But it's truly a relationship based, is talking to one of the maintenance individuals there. They may be a little bit tight-lipped as you begin that, that walk. They want to make sure, again, right, their current employer, they want to make them look good as well. But as that walk progresses, you guys, have a good conversation like that. That conversation will tell you more about how the property is operating, or maybe constant items that they're struggling with, than 2 hours with the seller. So have a conversation with them, make friends. If you got to bring coffee and some donuts, 100% do it. Those things they're worth their weight in gold. But going from there, right, is we also we call it making the building talk. Ruben has a good way of doing this.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Nico. We become the building whisperers. We stand in front of it. We just talk to it.
Ask a few questions.
Yeah, ask it some questions. No, so you want to make the building talk, right? And what I think we mean by that is, as simple as earlier, Nikki touched on it, senses, right? Your nose, your feet. You can walk into a building and start to tell when it starts sloping, right? And that should raise a flag in your mind. Hey, something's going on here. Specific smell, especially around, your wet areas, kitchen sink, restrooms, that organic growth smell. You want to pay attention to those. When you're walking units, you have every right. When you're in your option period, open the sinks, flush the toilets, open your tubs. Make sure that you can see that water flowing properly and draining properly. That can give you some very quick insight to what's going on in that unit, or if it's specific to a building. Another trick, a little pointer, if you're able to, during your due diligence phase, shut the water off to a building, if you're able to, and go outside, read the meter. If the meter's staying still, then you're good. If the meter's still moving, then you're more than likely have some sort of a leak issue somewhere, and you're ultimately buying a leak problem. Open your electrical panels. Make sure that now that Federal Pacific, Cinsco, make sure that those brands. Open a panel. If you see a Federal Pacific panel, then you automatically know, hey, we need to be planning for either a replacement or some sort of phasing plan to replace these panels. A couple things that I think we overlook as when we're looking at a property, when it's under contract, are these next two things, a few things. If you're buying a property where you're able to visit when it rains, I highly suggest that you do that. Drive the property when it's raining. You'll quickly be able to identify low spots, ponding areas. You'll be able to see how that water is running from off of the roof. You'll be able to see identify any drainage issues throughout the property. So that's a big one. If you're able to drive that asset while it's raining. Another one is, it's obviously, you want to stay safe, all that stuff, and hopefully you're buying in areas that are. Drive the property at night. You want to know how quiet, how loud that property is at night. You want to identify, hey, how well is my property lit? Where is there an opportunity for me to add more lights? What needs to be repaired? Where can I replace? Are our wall packs working? Do residents feel safe? Does it feel safe for me to be on site? Is it too dark? So you want to make sure that you're walking those, that you try and put into practice doing those two things, driving your property during the rain and at night. And again, just trusting your senses when you're walking. Any weird smells, any weird slopes, check that out.
Cool. Ruben and I are gonna tag team. This is a little bit of a review of everything that we've already talked about, but here are some red flags that if they aren't budgeted, they can totally blow up your capex plan, right? And it's fresh paint over moisture stains. Cosmetic covers, like I said, you may, when you're pulling up to a property, if it's very early on and you're one of the first people to go look at it, you may see some of the maintenance techs actually painting some of those areas. If you can see areas that have heavy areas or heavy layers of paint, those can be problems that, hey, this is a moisture area. Again, what Ruben talked about earlier, your plumbing costs, right? Whether it's watershed that's coming off of the building or internally where the plumbing's actually failing. Another one is down units. Don't ever accept the answer of, hey, we can't get into that unit, or, oh, there's a missing key. If you're during your 30-day period, if it takes 2 weeks to go in, make sure that we're seeing those down units. I've seen down units range from, it can be super easy. It can be a $15,000 repair and you got a fully new renovated unit. I've seen ones cost $50,000, $60,000 that need to be repaired. So those down units can make drastic differences in your capex planning. So make sure that you get in those. 100% is always going to be the ask. If for whatever reason you cannot get in, be patient, make sure you try to get back into the property. And then, as we touched on earlier, right, cast iron, or you'll hear this said as well, poly bead supply lines. If you see brand new sinks and brand new faucets, but you look under the hood, you see underneath the sink, and they've got old turnoff valves, those things don't do you much good. It's great to be able to lease those units and residents enjoy those. But if you're constantly having moisture issues or plumbing problems, then those are more costly repairs than you would originally imagine. But it's again, these red flags, they don't have to be deal killers, right? They can be things that you can plan for going in and you can adjust your plan around. But if you get into a property and then you find these things out, that's when it's really costly and you're trying to shift things around.
Yeah, Nico, and everyone, a few other things to look at is, if there's been repeat fires, water claims on property, make sure that you get all the information on those. When some of these claims are built, they will build in a vacancy loss into these claims. And those need to be documented and identified for you all. Another is when you're looking at a roof and when you're on site and you see only a few roofs out of 17 buildings replaced. And, sometimes the explanation is, hey, those roofs were in good condition. Only these 5 needed replacement. Odds are they were all replaced at the same time. And there's no real reason why only 5 should have been replaced out of the 17. Now, I know a lot of times, we want to extend the roof system as long as we possibly can, but you can only do that for so long. If you're seeing a lot of patching, odds are is that something is going on with those roofs and you're going to be buying that problem. So it's very important that whatever issues are going on, why only 5 versus all of them, getting replaced, why so many patches are happening. You want to get the details on those repairs, on those replacements. So you can plan accordingly. And make sure that you're getting the right capex plan built out. And again, lastly, the deferred and life safety items. Again, we can't emphasize enough on these items, only because the last thing you want is your residents getting hurt, leading to a lawsuit, negative reviews, empty units, etc.
Great, right? I think all of these lessons have truly only been learned through, some experiences. I think if you can learn some of these lessons from us or from other operators, this is a property that is currently under contract. So we'll just call it the Duncanville property for here. It's in the DFW area, and this was, a 30K surprise that didn't actually happen because we found it before. So story is this property was operating phenomenally. It was a very strong property. They were constantly being able to, one, keep residents and new residents. They were able to grab a premium from the surrounding properties. And so two things that we had questions going in, because we knew the current owner had just recently put well into the seven figures of exterior repairs, exterior capex in the last 3 years. One of those things that was mentioned, that the roofs were done, and it was just simply said like that, right? The roofs were redone. And so come to find out, like Ruben was talking about, after from the ground, the roofs looked fine. They actually didn't look too bad at all. It looked like, hey, yeah, maybe within the last 5 to 7 years, these things had been replaced. It wasn't until we were actually able to get up on top of the roof where we saw major areas of not damage, but just significant wear. This property or these roofs had, at this point, outstayed their welcome, right? And here in the Texas market, roofs do not last like they do in other markets. And so it's one of those things where we need to protect the interiors. We were able to bring that up. That was a free trade item that we're ultimately able to help the new buyer. Another one that we had talked about earlier was remediating the wiring. It was one of the things that was in the maintenance record. It was in the capex record that these units had been remediated from aluminum wiring. It wasn't until we'd actually popped off the outlet covers and pulled the outlets that we were able to see that they had put the purple wire nuts or these Colar connectors on maybe 2 to 3 per unit. And either they were lucky enough that the inspector only looked at those 2, or they had replaced those while the inspector was there and they got those passed off. Now, with agency loans these days, we knew the new buyer was going to be using an agency loan. Those things were going to be not only inspected by us, the agency, the insurance, and those things were going to be a very big ticket item. For this property, it was a little bit larger property. This was going to be a $300,000 number that they had not planned for. And this was not a huge capex budget. Like I had mentioned, it was a strong property. The exteriors were in good shape. And so really it was just into interior upgrades. But this 300K, when they only had a budget of about $1.5 million for their capex, this would have drastically taken out a lot of the things that they wanted to do when it came to upgrading some of the amenities or some of the interiors. So these are areas where they can drastically hurt your full capex plan if they're not found early. Luckily for them, it was a combination of a retrade and raising a little bit more capital for their exteriors. Plan still worked out great, and this is one that's in the process of getting done right now. The next one is a little bit different, that it took us some time. So this property was massive. It was 1,500 units. Institutional buyer was coming in. The institutional seller was just constantly having some issues. The occupancy was dropping. They had many down units, but they were always trying to remediate the problem. So they would have a set of down units, they would have a flood, they would have a fire, they would have certain things that would happen to these buildings. And there was only about 15 units per building throughout this property. It was about 120 buildings. It was a massive property, but they couldn't get themselves ahead. And so we spent a total of 5 days on this property. And it wasn't until probably day 4 when it finally clicked. We were trying to figure out why they would renovate, remediate, and fix an entire building. And then across the property, another building would have a fire, or another building would have a flood, or get vandalized. And then they were having to go put all their operational budget and their capex budget that they wanted to spend on other things towards remediating this problem. Their insurance was at the point of dropping them. They couldn't shop for new guys. Their lender was asking questions. But like I said, it wasn't until about day 4 that we realized, once we had a complete understanding of what the lighting plan looked like and which lights were actually out, we identified, it was funny, it was almost to a T. You could see where areas were dark, the darkest areas matched up perfectly to where these units were either getting vandalized or they would have a fire. And so it was actually a very simple fix. adding a few more lights, replacing the old lights, the old wall packs with new LEDs, completely brought the property up to a well lit, felt safer. The property as a whole just felt better. And since then, they actually haven't had any of those incidents. So it was small things, right? It can be small things that are causing big headaches, but they're small fixes. And so it's getting a full understanding of what these properties are going through to be able to formulate a good plan. And so again, it goes back to if you've got 30 to 60 days, use all 30 to 60 days. Don't just get into it that first week of due diligence and then you're spending the rest of the time in your deal room trying to get this thing done. Get back out there. Go out on the weekends, like Ruben said, in the rain, at night. Get a full understanding of what this story is telling. Try to look at it through a resident's eyes, and with your owner and operator experience, try to connect the dots from there. We'll finish out here.
All right. So what do we deliver? We've gone through we've reached out to us. We've gone through the due diligence phase. We've inspected your building, your property. And what can you expect from us? We ultimately provide a condition report for units if we are walking all your units, unless your property management company is doing that. But if you've engaged with us to walk those, we'll provide a full condition report of the interior and exterior with photos by unit, by systems, and organized in that manner. A line item capex what you can ultimately be translated into an estimate of real world numbers of what it'll take to execute your capex plan for your property. We will also do a priority matrix of, hey, this is, again, life safety being first. This is a priority, needs to be done the minute we get on site, and so on and so forth. And the execution plan will roll out a capex plan, again, always keeping in mind your business plan, but making sure that, hey, this is what needs to be done within the first year, and this can be phased out over year 2, over year 3. And also some of these plans depend on the type of loan that you have on your property. Some bridge loans require we move at a different pace, and versus an agency loan. So understanding what that looks like too is big. You want to make sure that you're partnering up with, again, whether it's us or a different group, that they understand what those loans look like and what you're locked into, to make sure that these renovation plans and capex plans are executed in a timely manner. And that is what we can deliver for you on the due diligence reports. Any questions?
Awesome. Yeah, great work. And again, if you do have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you guys do want to work with Sayan, obviously there's their contact information right there. Like I said at the beginning of the presentation, we've worked on them, I think probably over $15 million worth of projects across all of our assets, and you guys just knock it out of the park. Everything from unit upgrades to total clubhouse makeovers, adding amenities, roof replacements. I mean, you name it, you guys have done it for us, and it's been a great process. I did have, while we're waiting on the attendees, if they have any questions, I did have a couple questions that, a lot of this was talking through, post LOI, right? After you'd already submitted that LOI, right? So are there any things that your team can do to help people that may be looking at assets pre-LOI, so that, because obviously that will help you dial in your offer. And, this is a reputation business at the end of the day. You don't want to submit an offer and then have to retrade them by big amounts if you don't have to, right? Obviously, during the due diligence, you're going to do that really in-depth inspection. You might find stuff, as you guys have displayed, but maybe pre-LOI, are there some things or maybe some helpful tools or insights that you guys have that you can provide people with?
Sure. Nico, do you want to take this or do you want me to answer?
Sure. Yeah. A few. One is give us a call, ask us, right? If it's here in the Texas area, we have reach nationwide, but if it's here in the Texas area, we have a very strong team that can just go drive through the property and give you a good understanding of what that exterior project will look like, and help you understand. There's a few things that, pricing wise can change and it's going to differ. I wish I could sit here and tell you, paint it at, $1,000 a unit, or paint it at, or you're going to repair all the concrete at this price and all those. But those things can differ so drastically. So I don't want to give you, some information that you go put in your underwriting model, and then we get into due diligence and it's a total different surprise, right? One of the things is that I harp on with a lot of new owners and operators that are currently renovating or haven't renovated units in the last 4 to 5 years. That renovation cost, when it comes to interior units, has changed drastically. The rule of thumb in the past for like the last, 10 years was, hey, we can fully renovate a unit. We can take it from classic, damaged, dirty to a premium unit, hard stone countertops, new fixtures, new appliances, all of that. The old number used to be like 10 to 12K, right? And everybody could rely on that. Anymore, that's just not the case. If I'm telling it, or if I'm looking at, I want to renovate a certain percentage of units, use the number of 15 to 17, depending on the size of the units. And that'll give you a better idea of what you're stepping into. And then you can scale that back or up depending on what kind of fixtures and finishes that you want to go into.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super helpful. We've seen prices just creep on us, and so you don't want to use old numbers going into a new deal, right? So that constant communication between you as the potential owner and your general contractor is key. Even if you pre-LOI. So we're talking with the Sayan team all the time. Showing them deals that we're interested in, getting estimates for ballparks, and they can turn a lot of that around pretty quick. Maybe do you guys have like some common timelines? I know every property looks different, right? But let's say for your 150 unit, kind of a larger community that a lot of our people on this webinar might be going after or might be trying to get into, right? Like, what about like a roof replacement, full exterior paint, some of these big ticket items? How long does that stuff usually take? And then also a unit upgrade, and that's pretty standard across no matter what size. So how long should we factor in for, hey, if I want to fully renovate this unit, am I talking days, weeks, months? What does that look like?
Sure. I'll take the exterior. Nick, if you want to take the interior.
Sure.
On the exterior, if you're looking at a typical 150 unit, let's call it anywhere from 10 to 15 buildings. If you're looking at a full roof replacement, typically what that looks like from start to finish is about 3 weeks, weather permitting. Roofing, once our roofing crews get started, it's a pretty fast-paced project, regardless of the amount of squares. For a property of 150 units with 10 to 15 buildings, we're looking at anywhere from 1,800 squares to 2,200 squares, somewhere around there. And that should typically take about 3 weeks, give or take. On an exterior paint, same property profile, max, full paint. And if the property is 100% siding and you've got all your stairs and metal railings and perimeter fencing, clubhouse, leasing office, and we'll throw in carports in there too, you're looking about 60 to 90 days, just depending on the building types. But that is what you're looking at for a full exterior repaint. Again, these are pretty fast-paced projects, but those are projects that can immediately make an impact when you close on your property, and shows residents that, hey, these new owners mean business and they're doing good things to our property.
Yeah, I completely agree. On the interior side, it's a little bit different. You're going to tend to want to batch these units out, right? Especially in the very beginning, you're going to want to test a few things. But a general rule of thumb is a batch from anywhere from 6 to 12 units. I'll use the industry average, and then I'll shamelessly plug Sayan here in a second, but industry averages, you're going to take about a month to renovate a batch right there. And that's usually one, maybe two crews for the industry average. And obviously you can scale it from there depending on the asset's needs. But here at Sayan, our promise that we've delivered for hundreds of clients and thousands of units is 3 weeks, right? And generally, if we can have everything on site from kickoff day to final completion, you're putting a resident day in the day after is 17 calendar days. And so that usually bakes out to about 3 weeks on that stuff, a little bit 2.5 to 3 weeks. And then pre that, you usually have about a week of that is your planning, getting access to the units, getting orders delivered, things like that. So general rule of thumb, use a month. You'll be happy that you used a month per batch of units, and obviously at your discretion of how many you're doing, how many you want to do at a time, and what that leasing plan looks like.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super helpful. And I can attest again, we actually track these guys on how quickly they do their projects. And we've even seen them complete full unit upgrades in about 2 weeks. So 14, 15 days. So, they can't praise them enough. They do a great job. I see Kenny had a question, and then this will probably be about all the time. I haven't seen any more come in. So if you guys could, maybe address this question and then also just leave us with some final thoughts. How do they get in touch with you? That sort of thing. But Kenny asks, do you do mentorship for underwriting or capital structure and, obviously CapEx, that sort of thing?
Yep. So we don't do mentorship, but Kenny, feel free to call us. We constantly do get calls from existing clients or referrals that we get. Hey, we're getting into this. We'd like to get an idea of what these items typically look like. Feel free to call us. I mean, we love doing this and we love helping out. So, but no, to answer your question, we don't, at least at the moment, we don't offer any type of mentorship.
Ruben will be rolling out a fitness plan and a underwriting and capital structure. It's a premium, but it'll be pretty good.
Coming soon.
Yeah.
But no, if there's no other questions, everyone, we appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Dustin, Hayden, thank you for having us on. Hopefully everyone got some good value and some good information out of this. If you do have any questions that you didn't share here, if you have any questions, if you have a property that you'd like us to take a look at, if you've got questions on, some costs associated to some of, if you're currently working through a capex plan, you can reach us at our email, info@sayanconstruction.com. If you email there, it'll come to Nick and myself. Our phone number is on here as well. So please feel free to reach out with any questions. Email info@sayanconstruction.com.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks again, Nick and Ruben. Really appreciate your time and your wisdom. And again, just can't praise these guys enough. They do amazing work. We've worked with them on all of our projects. So please reach out to them if you guys have any CapEx or due diligence needs, anything like that. But that's all we've got for today. So I appreciate everybody joining, and thank you again, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys. Bye.
Thank you.